So, welcome to the Chattanooga Depression Care Collective member interview series. And I'm Regina Gee, and my world is all about telling bigger, more helpful stories of depression. And I'm here today with Naomi. And I'm so excited to hear more about your world, what you're about, who you are, why you do it, and how it helps with depression. So, go ahead and give the full introduction of like your name and your thing, and we'll get rolling.
Wow. Those are a lot of questions. I'll
Those are
start
some
with
big
one at a
ones.
time. I'm
Yeah.
glad you broke it down. So first of all, thanks for this opportunity. This is great. I love that you're doing a depression care collective in Chattanooga. And I'm Naomi Griffin Self. I facilitate Chattanooga Singing Circle. So that's all about using our voices to connect to our breath, our body, and each other through community singing. How to step more into an empowered place with vocal work and transformation that comes in a whole body sort of way. I feel like some of what I do is sort of adjacent to the wellness community and integrative wellness. You know, how all these different parts of our lives intersect, and using our voice and speaking up and having a voice and knowing that we have a voice and how to be empowered in our voice is all, I think, super empowering for everybody, and doing that through Singing Circle is just lots of fun.
I think people talk about like the idea of voice a lot, and it's so cool. What you do is literally embodying you use your voice in these circles.
Yes.
It's not just like, oh, my voice sounds like this. It's like, oh no, this is actually how it feels in my body.
Yes.
And in community.
Yes. And it's been really cool to hear stories back from people who have sung with me, and how they recognize and see the empowerment that they are getting in their lives outside of singing with vocal work. So I think it's really important work that we all do every day at some level or another if we're speaking at all, right? But how do we step into more of that power that we all walk around in the world with but don't always know we have?
Stepping into the power that we don't know we have. So if someone wants to work with you, like, what do they need to know about what it's like to be in your world?
Oh my. In my world, yeah.
Like, what can
it's
you
like
expect?
to be in my world with Singing Circle. Well, when somebody comes to Singing Circle for the first time, I'm very aware that there's a lot of vocal trauma in our world. There are a lot of people who have been told really difficult stories about their voices from little bitty. Shut up or I'll give you something to cry about. If you don't stop crying, I'll slap you. People have like physical stuff with their faces and mouths, being told to stand in the back and mouth the words because their voice wasn't good enough in elementary school choir. So I'm very aware that people often have a lot of vocal trauma. So when people come in the room, they've self-selected to be a part of a singing circle. So my hope for them, and what I try to create, is this really safe space where all voices are welcome. There's not a like standard, and if your voice isn't up to the standard, you're not welcome here. Like, your voice is welcome however it shows up today. And some days my voice is creaky, and some days it's smooth, and some days I love how it sounds, and some days I groan. And all of that is part of like self-compassion and self-care. And so I feel like the more I do that work personally, the more I'm able to create a space where I model that in some ways for other people. And so when people come in the door, they can expect to be in a circle.
Okay.
They can expect to be singing, because after all, it's Singing Circle. But they can also expect to hear a poem and to get grounded and to be invited to breathe and step into their body in maybe a more aware way than the way they've been running through their day. Can expect to be with other people, because it's about community singing, right? This isn't like solo work. It's not standing on a stage. It's not performance. There's no auditions. Every voice is truly welcome wherever a person is, whatever they think or feel about their voice, however it sounds in any given moment. It's welcome in our space. And what happens is the power of the whole holds each of us in ways that we couldn't have imagined on our own, right? So this isn't like, oh, yeah, I sing in the shower, but I don't want anybody to hear it. Yeah, like, we want to be heard. We want you to be heard, right? We want you to be heard as part of this whole, and together we create something that none of us can do singing in the shower or in our cars.
Mm-hmm. So if someone comes to Singing Circle, they can expect to walk in the door, stand or sit in a circle with people, and then like experiment with their voice and experiment with what it's like to be heard. And then you have a series of songs, and it's normally like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's different. You have series. Tell me more.
Yes. So it's a 90-minute session generally, and I have started doing some series on different topics, but we also have open sings. This fall, we're doing some pub sings at the local kombuchery, Chattanooga Culture Kombucha Bar in Rossville. We're going to do just some open sings on Wednesday nights there, where people can come and they don't have to have any prior experience, and they can just have a one-off experience of what it's like. And the songs that I teach in those situations are really simple, like easy to catch, kind of call and response style. I sing it, you sing it back in a group. You know, nobody's ever asked to sing on their own. It's always group work. But then in the series that I do, we live in the songs for the period of time that the series is. So this next series is about 8 weeks. It's a 16 sessions, so people can come on Sunday afternoons or on Tuesday mornings and, you know, be in the songs with the same group of people. After a couple of weeks, the doors close and we don't have new people coming in. So there's really an opportunity to drop deeper into community and into these songs where I talk about living in the songs and letting the songs work their medicine, their magic inside of me. I carry them around. They're in my pocket. Like, they come up when I need them. So that's what I hope to offer people, is not just a one-off singing experience, but a chance to carry songs and the music in their bodies and in their voices as they go through their days in ways that hold them.
How did you find your way to this work?
Yeah, that's a great question.
When did you start living the song?
Yeah. So I went to the Omega Institute for Family Week in 2014, I guess, was my first year there. And I wandered up the steps of the Ram Dass Library because I heard above me this gorgeous angelic sound. And it had been a long time since I had been in a space where I had permission to sing in community. And when I got to the top of the steps, I found myself at the edge of a 40 or 50 person circle singing, and I was wearing my son, who was at the time under 2, and I started swaying to the music, and then I picked up on the lyrics and I started singing, and I thought, oh, this is so beautiful, and I want to be in this workshop, but I'm not allowed to be in the workshop because I haven't paid for the class. And so I turned around with tears in my eyes and walked back down the steps and thought, next year I want to be a part of this experience. And I did that workshop for several years, and it was my first introduction to this type of community singing, and it just started to change me. It started to work its magic inside of me, and I was like, we need this in Chattanooga. Who's doing this? And I came back and looked around, and nobody was doing this. I found several opportunities to audition for choirs, and then of course there are a lot of religious choirs in churches, but neither of those fit what I wanted or needed at the time. And so I thought, well, I really want it, and it's not here. Maybe it's mine. You know, maybe I'm being called to start this thing.
Maybe I should do this.
So here I am doing this thing that I want more of in the world.
So you stumbled into this thing that you were like, what is this, and why is it so magical, and then how do I do more of it? And then you realized it wasn't here, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do that. And what you said about permission to sing in community, I want to hear more about that.
Yeah. Well, the song leaders that I know who do this work around the country, really around the world, there are lots of these happening in other spaces, right? And sometimes I hear them talk about this, like, part of what we do is we become permissionaries. So it's about giving people permission to use the voice they have just as it is in this moment in community, and being given permission to show up. And I know I see singers come in who are timid and don't even think of themselves as a singer, but when they relax into the permission that is theirs to use that particular voice on that particular day, it's magic. And I see them relax. I see them open up. I see them get stronger in their voice. I see them show up differently in the space, and they begin to show up differently in their lives, and they'll tell me that. And I'm like, exactly, that's what we're doing. Yeah, that's what we're doing, is giving people permission to speak their truths and to sing their truths and to give voice to that stuff inside that is sometimes hard to articulate, but really present and super potent when we can tap into it personally and then in community with one another.
John O'Donohue talks about how, like, the human voice is the most unique and powerful instrument. And I'm so intrigued by how you're taking this thing that, like, singing is normally so rigid and structured, and you, like, in the choir and things, it's like, this is how you do it. There's a right way and a wrong way. And you're taking that rigidity and softening it, and inviting people to step in and seeing how it changes, like, their instrument.
Yes, and I think I love that quote that it is the most powerful instrument. I think because it's the most powerful instrument, it's also the most vulnerable instrument, right? Because if I'm sitting behind the piano could be out of tune. My fingers might not be working, but the piano's probably out of tune, right? Or if I'm strumming my guitar, like, oh gosh, my string broke. Or, like, if there's an instrument, right, there's something mediating the sound between what I'm producing and what the world is hearing. But with our voices, there's nothing mediating the
There's
sound.
no buffer. It's you.
Yes, it's 100% like whatever we've got with us. And I find that whatever's going on for me affects my voice in all kinds of ways, both physically and emotionally and psychologically. And you know the difference of walking into a space where you feel super safe and how you show up there vocally, whether you're speaking or singing or whatever, and a place where you don't feel as safe, and that tendency to hold back or see what's going on before you bring your voice, right? And so like it is, I think, because it's so powerful, it's a really, really vulnerable spot for people. And I think it's part of why I do the work I do, because I want people to be empowered in the places of vulnerability and authenticity, and those necessarily go together.
Yeah, like the entanglement of power and vulnerability and authenticity, and how that's so evident when it's your personal voice,
right?
Because it's just like, yeah, that's where the emotion comes. That's where, like, I remember the first time I came to your singing circle and I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I remember that. It was on the mountain at Walden Pig Farm. Yep. And there was definitely a sense of like timidity around, oh God, am I doing this thing? And that's really normal. I just want to assure people that that's really normal, really normal for people to come in and say, I don't know if I really want to do this. And that's okay. It's okay to be scared and do it anyway. It's okay to feel the fear and still show up. It's okay to sing quietly, but still be present in the space and let it unfold. Let it do its work.
Letting it do its work, and be, like, the permission to sing, permission to be patient, permission to be powerful.
Yeah, I like that.
I want to make sure this is still going.
Yep.
Cool. So, what you do is you facilitate community singing circles, which gives people permission to show up and use their voice. Why you do it is it's been a powerful force in your life. Is there anything else about why you do it?
I think part of it is for me. Part of it is recognizing the places in my own life where, in spite of the fact that my coping strategies were to be loud and visible in the world, there were things I wasn't saying. There were things that needed to be said that I wasn't accessing because I was afraid, because there was somebody else with more power, because I was being shut down, because I'd been told that that wasn't what it looked like to be the, wife or woman or whatever that I was supposed to be in the world. And so I was withholding my own voice, in part from myself, but certainly from the people that I loved, because I wasn't speaking the truth that I needed to speak. And so I feel like my journey in vocal exploration with singing circles, where I don't have to get it right. I'm not being judged. I'm not being critiqued. I'm not being told that that's wrong anywhere except in my own mind, right? And so I have to do the work to release those messages. But nobody out here is judging me in these spaces, right? It's a very, very safe space. And so it kind of frees me up to really confront the work I need to do inside of me. And then as I've done that work, I've gotten braver and bolder with speaking my truth. And that's been a journey. It's been a challenging one. It has upended and uprooted everything that I've ever known. And yet it is that place of stepping into power that is vulnerable and authentic. And authenticity is like one of my very, very highest values. And so for this work personally, to bring more of that vulnerability and authenticity that I really long for has been really healing, but not on an easy path at all. But that's why I do what I do, because I want more people to experience that. And I know it's not just women. Of course, there are men who are shut down in their voices as well. But I know as a woman that a lot of women feel that they are not empowered in this culture to speak their truth, to stand up, to power, to equalize the power so that they have a voice at the table, whether it's the boardroom or the classroom or the, family dinner table, wherever it is. Like, I want everyone to be empowered to speak their truth and use their voice in ways that are powerful, loving, peace-seeking, real. Yeah.
You went from, like, being loud as a coping mechanism and all this empty noise to, like, full, true, real voice.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. I would agree.
That's some powerful stuff, to use your word.
Yeah, it feels pretty magical.
So how does it help with that depression, that heavy, empty, that dark, like shut down place?
Well, it's hard to be shut down when you're invited into a circle that is a circle for a reason, right? There's not somebody here that everybody's looking at. We're in this together. And so in the circle, you see everybody in the circle. So it's hard to be in a circle and like be in this posture.
It gets you out of being isolated.
And it's definitely not isolation, right? Yeah, you have to show up somewhere with people who often are counting on you being there, right? Like I can't do this by myself. And I tell my singers that all the time, like, thank you for showing up, because without you, there wouldn't be a circle and there wouldn't be this sound, right? And so there's this sense of other people are counting on me being there to help with the parts, to carry my part, and so that in and of itself gives people a reason to show up beyond just themselves, right? So while we're doing something that's good for the individual, there's this sense of collective that brings us together and says, oh wait, we all matter to one another and not just to ourselves. And I think that that's a beautiful part of Singing Circle. We didn't think to silence phones.
Okay, so showing up to circle is one way it helps, and it's about healing in community in a way that's not gonna like poke and prod you or ask you to perform. It's just, hey, show up and use your voice and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. And there are opportunities. I do at times. Sometimes we do some improv work, which can be really scary for people. Like sometimes people really want more improv because they don't want the rigidity of a structured song. But some people really appreciate that, like, I know what notes to sing and I just heard you sing them and I know what to do, right? And so I try to make space for both. But sometimes in an improv kind of space, I'll invite people, if they want, to go to the center and make something up on top of what's happening around them. And if they want that experience, they can have it, right? They can say yes to that. If it feels scary, I might encourage, like, even if it feels scary, try to step into that space. But there's no must, and so people don't have to do that, right? So you can show up at whatever level feels good, and the stretching and growing happens from an internal motivation, not an external motivation, beyond the holding and the support and encouragement to try new things. But I talk about Singing Circle being a playground for song. So I feel like it's a place to play with our voices and with each other. And so there's this childlike quality to it at times where, 5-year-olds don't think twice about singing at the top of their lungs on the playground, right? Until somebody says, hey, be quiet, right? So, like, can we tap into those little parts of us that are longing to be heard, that want to be loud and want to play with our friends and be silly? I mean, sometimes it's an embodied kind of silliness. We sometimes walk around when we're singing, so that brings people out. Like, you can have eye contact with somebody else. There's a different kind of intimacy that happens when we're walking in circle with one another and connecting versus there's a leader and there's the people looking at the leader. Like, there's no part of that I want to encourage. I want us to be in this thing together, because when we go out into the bigger world, we are in it together, and feeling that sense of connection in the circle can ripple out into every part of our lives, I think.
So you take these like hard, heavy, real life things and bring them into circle, but take the rigidity and the regime and the control away and just bring in play.
Yes, that's the hope.
So healing, right?
That's the idea. Yeah, for sure. And, holding a space that feels safe and loving and welcoming and all of those things is part of what I do. I think another way that singing helps with depression is it just, our heartbeats sync up and our breath syncs up, and like we're really reminded that we're not alone. And there are lots of studies that show that people who sing often in community, it's in community, not just singing. Like, singing in the shower is good, but singing in community is better. And the research proves that singing in community brings people joy and happiness. And people leave a singing circle always uplifted. I mean, I hear people in various circles that I've been a part of say, oh, I was so tired when I came, and I'm so glad I did. Like, I always feel better after I sing in community. And it's just medicine. Like, if we could get a prescription for everybody to join a singing circle, I would want 150 singing circles across the city of Chattanooga so that everybody can access it and sing, because it's good for our souls and our psyches.
So singing circles get you out of your head. They get you in the proximity of other beating hearts, and they, like, you vibrate your whole body because you're singing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So very embodied, like, not just abstract healing where it's like, oh, we're going to talk circles about a thing. It's like, no, you're just going to show up and you're going to experience something, and it's going to help you feel uplifted.
Yes.
And connected and part of a collective.
Yes.
You're part of the circle, even if you're just in that circle one time.
Yeah. For sure. 100%.
I thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's important to have these, like, multifaceted ways of holding, like, life is heavy, and it's how we hold it, and having not just a brain to do it, but a soul to do it, a heart to do it.
And their breath.
And your breath. Like, it's all connected always. So.
Yes, always. Yeah, and I think we walk around as disembodied heads so much of the time in this culture that encourages us to think deeply or, consider all this other stuff, right? But there's so much that happens when we tap into the rest of our body.
There is so much that happens when we tap into our body and to our community.
Yes. And I love the work that you're doing to bring us all together and help us recognize that there's a lot of there are a lot of layers and a lot of inputs to why people feel down or discouraged or depressed or isolated or alone, and being able to weave, I like that word, to weave the different components together, I think is beautiful. So I'm honored to be part of this experience that you're creating in Chattanooga.
It's happening. This is a perfect little segue. Like, what do you want people to know about how to find you and how to connect with you and work with you?
Yeah, so right now my website is Your Self Services, because I have this bigger umbrella for my company. So it's yourselfservices.com. And you can also search Chattanooga Singing Circle. It'll come up that way. I'm in a process now potentially of rebranding to make it bigger, because I'm also singing once a month in Knoxville, and I have big dreams, so we'll see. But right now it's yourselfservices.com. And that's probably the best way to find me. Flyers around town, and a new series starts on Sunday. So
and you have a newsletter, right, that you send out?
I do have a newsletter. So if you go to yourselfservices.com, you can sign up there for my newsletter and get on my list, and I can let you know of all things singing that are happening in my world in Chattanooga.
Yeah, so Naomi's part of the Chattanooga Depression Care Collective. If you want to know more about the work we do as a collective and find other practitioners, we have a landing page that'll be linked in the notes below. And I think that's all. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I might just end with a quick song.
I would love that.
Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. So that's a song by Debbie Narji Brown, one of the songwriters and song leaders in this singing circle community, and it's a fun one to sing. And I want to invite people to be open for new possibilities, new adventures, new experiments, new playgrounds, and Singing Circle's one of them. So
that's one of my favorite songs, and it lives with me. So thank you.
Yay!
Thank
You could have sung along.
I thought about it, but I was like, oh.
Oh! See, it happens with all of us. We all get to places where we're like, can I do that thing?
Yeah, you get there and then you do it, and you're like, oh, I can do that thing.
You can do that thing.
Yeah. So
and all voices are always welcome. I often say, all of you is welcome here. All of you are welcome here, and all of you is welcome here.
Spaces like that are so important in this landscape of disconnection. It's like, where are we all welcome? And permission to use your voice.
Yes, love it.